Hi and welcome to this selected game for you today on this channel on YouTube, and thank you YouTube, and thank you for popping in to have a look at this great game. This is Paul Morphy with a blindfold on. Okay, so this is Paul Morphy at New Orleans in 1858. So he is playing an amateur, and so, excuse me, here we go. The opening is a King's Knight Gambit. Okay, so here we got E4, E4, F4. The computer's suggesting moves. Isn't that cool? EF4, which is quite a good move for black. Okay, now knight f3, because the queen wants to come out to h4, doesn't it? Check. Knight f3, so the queen's not going there now. And now the amateur player, which is not named in this book from Paul Morphy's Games of Chess under Blindfold Games, now plays an inaccurate move c6. So just remember that Paul Morphy is blindfolded. Okay? So here's a bad move to get out of the books from Paul Morphy, from black. That's the reason why black played c6, or pawn to queen's bishop 3, question mark back then. With his fifth move, black makes matters worse still. Okay, so now we have knight c3 and bishop to b4, which is not the fifth move, it's the fourth move. Now comes bishop c4, and here comes black's bad move as well, which is bishop takes knight c3. And as Nimzovich would say, there is no reason to take it, so don't exchange pieces idly off for no purpose or advantage at all. So where you can take something doesn't mean that you should take it. Sometimes it's best not to take the piece or the swap. Now, Paul Morphy played dc3, or queen's pawn takes bishop, and now came knight e7. And here comes this move here, queen d6, which is kind of blockading black from the bishop c8, and all of a sudden this knight and bishop are looking a little bit sort of like hard to look after or to develop. And also, if the king castles, the queen, which it does play, the queen has to defend, for the meantime, the knight e7, you see. So, here's castles. And so that hasn't got anything that says this is a bad move. And here comes queen's bishop takes pawn on f4, knight to g6. And if this pawn was here, everyone knows that queen takes knight is possible, because the knight cannot be captured back. But then black would have d5 next move if that was the game, but it isn't. So after knight to knight 3, here comes bishop g5, which is now unable to be parried by f6 because it's bishop c4 to g8 check. So now really the queen's only got 3 options not taking the bishop, but playing queen here, or queen here, or queen here. And black opted to play queen to e8, queen to king 1. Now comes just simple castling kingside. And please remember, white, not black, is blindfold in this game, is blindfolded. Now we have king h8. Now this is not actually aiding black's development, but black is more or less wanting to play f6 to get some breathing space here in this position. And if queen takes pawn, okay, what would you play if queen takes pawn? Okay, this is the move that white was probably going to play, is knight to d2, and white has a great advantage. Now where's the queen going to go? Well, the queen can go to e5, can't it? This is just analysis. And the computer wants to play knight e4, or does it? So anyway, that's queen e4 is no good after knight d2. And we also have other moves too. So if queen e5, we could be tempted here to play this almost. Could we? Could we be tempted to play that? From there? Or something else. Maybe we could be tempted to play, what would we play? Maybe we could be tempted to play rook f7 even, or queen f8. I think queen f8 might be okay. Or is it? I don't know. I don't think it is actually. But that's how possibly white is to do something radical here after knight d2. Sorry, I don't actually see anything that I consider as great. So here we got king h8. Okay. Now we have the easy move to see is queen's rook to king 1 or rook a e1. Put pawn to bishop 3 as black has shown they want to play. Now just remember, this is blindfold for white. Now white plays a typical move of Paul Morphy here. So what do you think that move is? Is e5. Now this generates the move f5, but they do give this here is fg5, knight g5 takes, rook f1 check, rook f1 takes, and that is black is completely lost. There are a whole lot of nasty things happening here for black. Now let's just say we're just going to do this for an exercise. We're not saying that my move for black is the best move, but it's one of them. Now there are a couple of moves after queen e5 that we can play here, and they are notably rook f8 check, knight f7 check, or even just queen takes queen, and that's pretty final, and that's how good this position is. Or even queen f8 check, knight f8, knight f8, and rook f8 checkmate. So that's all pretty good. And by the way, even pawn takes pawn here is even worse. Okay? So that's not the best thing to do for black. So black played f5. Whether that's any good or not is another question. Now comes knight to d4. So white's got a pretty primo game. Look at these pieces over here. That reminds me of a match game that I had as black in the South Island Championships, which is not good. It's not a good look. So here after knight d4, we're just threatening sort of maybe knight f5 or rook f5 or maybe even e6, which all moves look quite comfortable. So after knight d4, black goes on the offensive instead of the defensive. Black's pretty piled up on the queen side, I think you will agree. And hasn't got time to push pawns idly round thinking that that pawn on f4 can help them. But it was attacked, to be fair. It was attacked twice by white, but black hasn't really got time for playing like this in this game, especially against Paul Morphy. Now comes e6. And here is, of course, just d(e6). Now black has some space. Oops. Black has some space for their bishop or knight. And it keeps on wanting to do a pre-move, but I'm not interested. So after e6, pawn takes pawn, we have, of course, knight takes pawn. And this more or less promotes the idea of bishop takes. And rook takes. Now white's got, there's no sort of suitable thing for black to do there, because what would happen if queen d7? What would you play if queen d7? So if the queen goes for black to d7, what would you play then? And good on you for seeing. Queen d7 is no good, because rook g6, and it removes the defender of f8 and queen g8 checkmate. So if the queen takes back now, as the computer's doing, then rook takes d6, and white is now a whole piece up and a very, very good position as well. White just threatens rook f4, and after rook takes rook, rook d8 check, and rook takes f8 checkmate. So here black played the amateur, and remember, I've said it before, Mr. Morphy is blindfolded. As queen c8. Now comes a beautiful combination, which is similar to the last one, but quite deep, considering that at this 16th move position, white is blindfolded and sees through to fruition this this win for white. So the following moves are, so if you don't want to see what happens next, I suggest you look at this and pause this game as it sits. So now it comes rook g6, and black says, hang on, I'll just take that, won't I? Duh. And here's queen g6. Now what's happening here is queen h5 is checkmate. So black has to do something immediate about it. So black plays queen to f5, which looks quite a good move, really, doesn't it? And so here comes the nice follow-up. So can you see Paul Morphy's blindfold next move? Is this move here. Rook takes pawn, and if queen takes rook, then just merely queen h5 checkmate, which is quite good. So queen takes queen, rook takes check, king to rook 2, bishop to g8 check, king to h8 because the king's got nothing better to do, bishop to f7 check, and it's now attacking the queen, of course, and checking the king as well. King takes nothing, king h7, and now we have bishop g6 check, and the rest is now over. Black here resigned back then in New Orleans, 1858. The play from here should or probably will go like this. And here, this knight, as the computer demonstrates, this database demonstrates that black is going to lose at least their knight now, depending what move they make. Okay, so that's the session today, and thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this game from Paul Morphy that he played all those years ago, Blindfold. All the best with your chess, no matter where it's at, and primarily try to enjoy the game. Thank you. Thanks for calling in.